Hi guys, my name is Emmanuel. Welcome to the sixth video of this tutorial series. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to move and pass information from one view to another. And we're going to do this using a very popular game called Tic-Tac-Toe. Now, in order to save us a lot of time, I had to go ahead and implement the design of the interface, right? So I'm going to leave a link in the description to the starter project. So if you'd want to follow along with me, then go ahead, pause the video, download the starter project and get ready. If not, you could also watch, and at the end of the video I'm going to leave a link to the final project as well, so you're going to have both of them available. So just open up the project and let's get started. I'm going to do a very quick walkthrough over what we have in our starter project. If you head over to the main.storyboard, you can see that we have two view controllers. The first is the home screen and the second is the game screen. Now when the user enters his or her name in this text field and clicks on the start button, the game is going to be directed to the game screen where the name and the score of the user is going to be displayed, along with the score of the computer. Now when the user clicks on this close button, the game is going to be directed back to the home screen, okay? And right here we have our main board that is going to display X or O as the user clicks. Awesome. Now let's head straight down to our view controller, and we can see straight away that we have three outlets connected: our name field, our start button, and our card view. And right here I just did a little design where I added corner radius to the start button and to the card view as well, and finally added a little shadow. So this is what allows us to resign the keyboard whenever we click outside of the screen. Let's head straight down to our assets. So right here we have our background, close button, X, and O. Awesome. So heading back to our main.storyboard, we can see that this home screen is actually connected to a view controller right here. But when we go to our game screen, we can see that there's no view controller connected. So the first thing we need to do is to connect this view controller to a view controller class. To do that, I'm just going to click right here and hold down Command and New, or you could just right click, go straight to New File, and we're going to select Cocoa Touch class, Next, and here we're going to be creating a view controller. So I'm just going to call this GameViewController, and Next, Create. Awesome. So now we have our GameViewController created. I'm just going to get rid of all of these. We don't need that now. And back to our main.storyboard. Whenever we want to connect our view controller to a view controller class, all we need to do is click right here and make sure we are in the identity inspector. And right here we just need to write the name of the class. I'm just going to call this game view controller as we created. And just like that, this game view controller is connected to our view controller right here. The last thing I'd like us to do is to connect the outlets from this game view controller to our game view controller class. So remember from our last video, we need to open up the assistant editor and then we start to drag things. So the first thing I said, we need to drag the name. So I'm just going to bring in the side nav. So control click, drag right here. I'm going to call this player name label. Next, I'm going to have the player score. So control click drag right here. I'm going to call this player score label again. Then next we're going to need the computer score label. So right here, computer score label. Awesome. Now the next thing we're going to need to do is let's drag the close button. Now this is going to be an action. Why am I clicking? So the close button like that, and this is going to be close button clicked. You can make this a UI button, connect, and finally we're going to need to connect each of these image views. And remember, let's just connect one first. So this is going to be, I'm going to call this 1, just like the index. So 1 or card. Let's call this box 1, sorry. So I'm just going to fast forward this video a little bit so I don't waste more time.
Oh, I'm about to dive in.
So I have all the boxes connected, and actually went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that, 7, 8, 9. So yeah, we have all of these connected. We can safely head over to our GameViewController. Awesome. So let's run the application just to see what we have now. Great. So right here, we have our design. We click on the start button, but nothing happens. So the first thing we're going to need to do is, whenever we click on the start button, we'd like to navigate straight down to our second page. And not just that, we'd have to send the information that was entered right here in this field and display it in the player label. Okay? Now, whenever we want to move from one screen to the other, it's actually very easy. First, we could do it using the storyboard, or we could write it by code. Now, let's try the storyboard first. Head over to the main.storyboard, and let's close this. What's wrong with you? Sorry about that. Anyways, so whenever we click on the start button, I want to show the screen. To do that, just hold down the control button, click drag from the start button straight down to this view. Okay? When you let go, just select show. And it's as easy as that, believe me. We're going to run this again. And now, whenever we click on the start button, the next view is displayed just like that. Isn't that awesome? So as I said, what we need to do is pass the player name right here. So instead of displaying player, we'd want to display the name of the player. To do that, we're going to go straight to our view controller, and we'd need to implement a method called prepare for segue right here. So before we actually start anything here, we need to go over to our GameViewController and create a variable. I'm just going to call this player. What is wrong? How do we display a player again? So player name, and this is going to be a string. Okay, and I'm sure that this is going to be passed in. So heading back to our view controller, what we need to do right here in our prepare for segue is we need to say if let controller be equal to our segue dot our destination as a game view controller. So what we're simply saying is get me a view controller, or get me the destination of our segue, and it should be of type game view controller. If it is, then what we want to do is say controller dot our player name to be equal to our name field dot text. Okay, now in our game view controller, I'm just going to print the name right here. Well, anyways, we could just set it directly. So I'm just going to say player name label dot text should be equal to our player name, like that. Now let's run this and see what we have. So if I write my name right here, Emmanuel, and I click start, we can see Emmanuel is right here. Awesome. Now there's actually a catch. What if I don't enter a name at all and I click start? So this is what we have, and we don't want this. So what we want to do is actually add a check or a guard to make sure that the username is actually entered. Okay, let's head back. And before we do that, I just need to modify this to include a colon. So I'm going to say plus this like that, so that we have a colon after the player name. So let's head back to our view controller, and what we want to do here is implement another method called should perform segue, right, with identifier. And now this means that we actually need to set an identifier for our segue, just so we know what particular segue we are or is being executed. So to do that, we're going to go to our main storyboard, and we're going to click on this segue, and we're going to call this go to game VC or game scene or whatever. So I've copied that, and we're going to head straight back to our view controller, and what I want to do is say if our identifier is equal to this. So if this identifier, if the segue is being executed, we want to do something, else we're just going to return true for every other segue. Now for this particular segue, we want to perform a check to make sure that the username is actually entered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if name field dot text, I'm going to bang this, and I'm going to trim just in case the user enters just white spaces. So namefield.text.trimming characters in white space dot is empty. So if it is empty, what we want to do is return false. So don't allow the segue to go. Otherwise, just allow it to go. So I'm going to run this again. And this time, when we try to click on the start button, nothing happens. But whenever we enter our name, so I'm just going to say Emma and start, and it goes. And you can see we have our colon right here. So I think that's good. That's good. But instead of having this not doing anything, I think it's better to actually display an error message. So I'm going to leave that to you. Yeah, just try it out. Try to display an alert or whatever, so the user knows what is going wrong. I've actually identified one way of transitioning from one screen to another. I'm going to quickly demonstrate the second one, which is doing it by code. So I'm just gonna, anyway, we can leave all of these for now and just head to our main.storyboard and get rid of the segue, this guy. So, and since I've done that, yeah, we can run it again and be sure that nothing is connected again. So clicking on start, nothing happens. I enter some text, click on start, nothing happens. Awesome. So let's actually try out this second means of redirecting to another page. Now for this second method, we actually need to drag in an IB action for our start button. So I'm just going to go straight down to our main.storyboard and click on the start button right here. Let's add an IB action for our start button like this. So action, I'm going to say start button clicked. UI button connect. Awesome. Let's head back. The first thing we want to do is, again, make sure that the user actually entered some text. So I'm going to copy that, but this time I'm going to use a guard statement, and what we want to do is guard that it is not empty. Okay, else we're going to return. So at this point, the user has actually entered a name in the text field. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a view controller. So to do that, we're going to say let's add some space there. So let controller be equal to our storyboard. What is wrong? Storyboard dot instantiate instantiate view controller with identifier, exactly. And now we need to actually give our game view controller an identifier. Now let's head over to our main.storyboard, and in our game screen, click here, make sure we're selected, go straight down to our identity inspector. So right here you can see storyboard ID, and all we need to do is give it an ID. So I'm just going to call this game scene. So I've copied that, head straight back to our view controller, and we're going to paste that right here. Okay, and next we need to cast this as a game view controller class. So I'm going to say as, and I'm sure, so bang game view controller, and finally all we need to do is say controller, I mean not finally though, controller dot player name should be equal to our name field dot text. Now the next thing we need to do is to actually transition. Okay, and to do that, there's actually different ways. If you were in a navigation controller, you can use the navigation, and we could simply just use a push. So I'm going to say self.present, and right here you can see present view controller to present, and what we need to pass in here is our controller, which is what we just created here, and you can animate it. So I'm just going to say true, and for completion I don't actually need anything done, so I'm going to say nil. Now when we run this, okay, so right here, if we try to click on the start button, nothing happens. And if I enter my nickname, Mako, a cow, like that, and click on the start button, it goes and everything works as it should. So this is one way, and there's something I actually like to do here. So there's this flip animation. So I'm just going to say controller dot transition style, and what I want to set it to is dot flip horizontally. So if I run this again, and when I enter my name here, click start, awesome, that just looked great. So there's one more thing I'd like to do here. So you see how this is presented like this, new iOS 13 whatever. What I want to do is, I don't want this, so I want it to be presented fully. Okay, so full screen, and that's actually easy to do. Right here, all we need to do is say controller dot presentation style, like that, and what I'm going to set it to is dot full screen. So let's run it one more time. So I'm just going to write my name right here, Emmanuel again, click start, and just like that everything works. So this is actually the main thing I wanted to teach you in this video. So if you've liked it, please go ahead, click on the like button. If you haven't subscribed already, please click on the subscribe button and also turn on notification so you can see more cool videos like this. Now I'm actually going to go ahead and continue with the Tic-Tac-Toe game. So if you're interested and you want to know how to create this, then by all means follow along. If you aren't interested, then it's fine. You have the knowledge you need. You can pursue your dreams, my friend. So let's head back and start with the game itself. Let's head over to our GameViewController. And the first thing we need to do is actually add event listeners or tap gesture to all of our boxes. Just for the sake of playing around with enums, let's create an enum that holds the name of each slot. So I'm going to call this box, and it's going to be of type string. So we're going to have cases for 1, now the next thing we're going to need to do is to create a reusable method. I'm going to call mine create tap, and this is going to be used to add tap gesture to each of our boxes. So the parameters are going to be on image view, which is going to be of type UI image view. The next parameter is going to be type, which is going to be the box of type box. That's the name of the box. Now over here, we can create our tap gesture from our last video. So just say let tap be equal to UI tap gesture recognizer, and this is going to take in target and action self. And for here, let's actually create our Objective-C method. So at objc, and I'm just going to call this box clicked, which is going to take in a parameter sender UI tap gesture recognizer, like that. I just started raining. Nice. Okay, so now we've connected this, we can come over here and say hash selector and say self dot box clicked, and that's it. So the next thing we're going to need to do is to give our tap a name, just so we can identify it. So I'm going to say tap dot name, and this is going to be equal to our box type dot row value to get the string, rather our box, not the type. So after that, remember this is an image view, so we need to make it clickable. We're gonna say image view dot is user interaction enabled, and this is gonna be true. Yep. And finally, what we need to do is add our gesture. So image view dot add gesture recognizer, and this is gonna be tap. And all we need to do is right here, we're gonna call our create tap method. So I'm just gonna say create tap, and on we're gonna pass in box 1, and the name is gonna be 1, like that. Now that we've added this, let's finally add a print statement here so that we can see the name of the box that we click. I'm just gonna say print, and right here I'm gonna say box and print the box name. So sender dot name was clicked. And yeah, we can go ahead and run this and see what we have. So I'm just gonna write my name right here, start, and let's see what we have. So 2, 1, 4, 7. Nice. So we can see that it works. So the next thing we're gonna need to do is, as you click on each of these fields, we'd like to display the X or O image. Okay, so let's go back. So first, let's actually create a method that accepts a string and returns the image view. So it's going to take in the name of the box and then return the box itself. So I'm going to call this get box, and this is going to take from name, and this is going to be a string. And here we're going to return a UI image view. Okay, so we're going to have to switch. But before then, let's actually convert our name to a box type. So I'm gonna say box equals box, and this is gonna take in the row value, which is a name, and return a box. And we're just gonna add a default because it's gonna be optional, and the default value is gonna be 1. Awesome. So here we have a value of type box, like that. Now we're going to be able to switch between our box and case 1. If it is 1, we're going to have to return box 1. Box 1. And we're going to do this for all 9 boxes. So I'm just going to forward this to save some time. Great. So we have our method that returns the box, and at this point what we can do is call the get box and pass in our sender.name, and it's going to return the instance of the box. And with the instance we can actually modify the image of that particular image view. So what I'm going to do here is say let selected box be equal to our get box from sender dot name. So what we're going to do here just for testing is say selected box. So an error. What's that? Error type. Okay, yeah, this should accept an optional name, just so that it's either that or we add a default value. So anyways, let's just go ahead and add a default value of an empty string. That's faster. So yeah, what we're gonna do here is say selected box dot our image. Just for test, we're gonna add in our X. Let's add our X. So Command Shift and L, and the X like that. Good. So that's the X value. Yep. Awesome. Let's go ahead and run this. I don't know what this error is. Okay, good. And what we expect is that whenever we click on any box, the image should change to the X image. So right here, Mako, stop saying Macau, learn. And I'm gonna click here, X, 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 X. Awesome, awesome, awesome. This looks good, this looks good. So the next thing we need to do is actually switch between X and O. So if the last value was X, then the new value should be O, okay? So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So we're gonna need a variable that keeps track of the last value that was created. We're gonna call it last value, and this is going to be equal to O. Now, right here, we're going to create a method called makeChoice, and it's going to accept an argument called selectedBox of type UIImageView. And what we need to do here is, first we need to make sure that that box has not been selected before. So I'm going to say guard selectedBox.image should be equal to nil. Else we want to return. So if you try to select a box that has been selected before, it's not going to work. After that, we need to check what the last value was. So I'm just going to say if last value was equal to X, what I want to do is say selected box dot image should be equal to, and this time we need to set it to O. So if the previous was X, the new has to be O, like that. Else, the selected image has to be what? X. Awesome. And finally, we need to set the new last value to be equal to O, and the new last value to be equal to what? X. Nice. So whenever a user clicks on a box, what we need to do at this point is say make choice, and what we're going to call is our selected box. So after a user has made a choice, we want the computer to immediately make his own choice. Anyway, not immediately, but after some time. So what we're going to do is we're going to call it computer play, and we're going to need a variable. We'll call it available spaces, and this is going to be of type UIImageView. Next, we're going to need to loop through all of these cases, and to do that, we need to make this guy case traceable like that. And here, we can say for name in box dot all cases. So this is going to return a box instance, and for us to get the box itself, remember we have a method. We're going to say let box be equal to get box, and it has a label from name dot row value. Exactly. So this is going to be the string. Now that we have access to the box, we need to check if there's currently an image in the box.image is equal to nil. And if it is nil, it means that it's an available space. So we're just going to say available spaces dot append. And we're going to pass in box. XCode refused to hint anymore. I don't know why. But this should be good. The next thing we want to do is get a random index. So I'm just going to call this rand index, and it's going to be equal to int.random, and I believe the label is in 0 to the length. We need to go through to the length of the available spaces. I'm going to say available spaces dot count. So this is going to give us a random index from 0 to the length of this array. And finally, we can do make choice and pass in a selected box, which is going to be our available. Why is available always hard for me to spell? Available spaces and then rand index. Come over here and call this function. And we're going to do this after a delay. So to do that, I'll just say dispatch queue.main.async after a deadline, which is .now, plus we can do like 0.5 seconds. And finally, we just need to call computer play. Now, doing things this way actually exposes you to a loophole. I leave that to you to figure it out. Let's run this and see what we have. So right here, I write my name, Emmanuel, start, and I select X, O, good, X, O, X. So nothing happens. Let's continue. And X again. And actually the thing crashed. And the reason is this index has become out of bounds. There isn't any more possible decision to be made by the computer. So what we need to do, after a choice has been made, there are two things we need to check for. First, we need to check if this is the winning move. And secondly, we need to check if there are more options available. Okay? So let's create a method to check if you've won. I'm going to call this func check if won. So the first thing we actually need to do is to specify the various correct forms. So I'm just going to create an array called correct of an array that contains what's this called? Yeah, box. So this is an array of box, and this box is going to be the correct sequence. So what we're going to do, yeah, this has to be a variable, of course. So we're going to say let top row be equal to, and top row is going to be .1, .2, .3. And by the way, just so you know, you could actually use an array instead of going through the route of an enum. I just wanted to, play around with the enum and just like exercise our knowledge. But yeah, you could always go the route of using a simple array. So this is going to be an array of box, and for the top row, the correct value is 1, 2, and 3. Now, let's just say expected member name, a constructor. Okay, yeah. Okay, so this is for the top row. Next thing, we have the middle and the last. I could say, let's just change this to first row, second row, third row. Good. Now this is going to be 4, 5, 6. So I'm just gonna fast forward this. So here we actually have all of the possible correct values. So first row like this, second row like this, column and backward slash is just diagonal like this, forward slash diagonal like that. So these are all of them. What we actually need to do next is to loop through the user selection. So all of the positions that have been selected by the user, we need to loop through that and try to identify if all of these selections include all of these values. So to do that, we're just going to go over to the top, and we're going to create a variable called player choices, and this is going to be an array of box. Next, we have to create an array for the computer. So computer choices, it's going to be an array of box as well. Now, right here, we need to add the user's choice to the player choice array. So to do that, we're just going to say player choices dot append, and this is going to take a box, so row value, and this is going to be sender dot the name. Now I'm just going to force unwrap this because I'm sure that they exist. After that, we'd have to do the same thing for the computer player. But before then, let's see what this error is. Okay, it has no initializers. Oh, right here. So I'm just going to set this to empty arrays like that. Awesome. Now straight down to our computer, what we need to do actually here is we're going to create a variable, and this is going to be available boxes. It's going to be an array of box like that, and right here we need to also append the box, which is name. So name is of type box. Great. Now at this point, what we could do is say computer choices the append, and this is going to take a box, and we're going to take this from our available boxes, and the index is going to be our rand index, so the same index as the image view that was selected right here. Now we can safely head over to our check if one method and implement our logic. So the first thing we're going to do is to append all of these valid values to our correct array, just so that we have a single loop. So I'm just going to perform a loop on the correct array. So I'm just going to say for, I'm going to call this valid in correct. Okay. Then I'm going to implement matches for both the computer and the user. So I'm going to say let user match be equal to player choices dot filter. And what I want to filter for is our valid, or to check if our valid contains the value. Then in the end, I just need to count. Now we're going to do the same thing for a computer. So I'm just going to say computer match like that. And this time we're going to be searching for the computer choices. And same thing, we're going to check the count. The next thing we're going to need to do is check if the match is equal to the valid count. So I'm going to say if user match is equal to the valid.count. Now if this is true, it means that the user has won. Else, if the computer match is equal to the valid.count, it means that the computer has won. Else, finally, if the computer choices dot count is plus the player choices dot count is equal to 9, this means that there's a draw. So if the player wins, what I want to do is to increase the player score. To do that, I'm just going to say player score label dot text is going to be equal to our player score label dot text, and since it's optional, we have to safe unwrap this as a string as well. Now I need to convert this to an integer, and since it is an integer, this is going to be optional. So what I have to do is also unwrap this safely as an integer 0. And when I'm done, all I need to do is to add 1. So I'm simply incrementing the value of the current score of the user. Finally, we need to convert this to a string. That's a lot of nested stuff, but I hope you understand. Basically what we're doing is, first of all, we're getting the text from the label. Now we could force unwrap this, but I'm just safely unwrapping this to a string of 0, right? Now we're trying to cast this into an integer because we want to perform an addition. So casting this as an integer returns an optional int. Okay, so what I did was, in case it is nil, I just want it to fall to 0. Okay, then finally, after getting the current value of the player label text as an integer, we simply increment the value by 1, then convert it to a string and assign it to our player text. I hope that makes sense. So we're going to do this same thing for the computer in case the computer wins. This is going to be computer score label dot text, and this is going to be computer score label as well. Every other thing remains the same. Now the next thing we're going to do is to implement a method to reset the game whenever a user or a computer wins, or if there's a tie. So I'm just going to create a method right here called reset game. Okay. And the first thing we want to do is to remove all of the X's and O's that are currently on the board. So we're just going to say for name in our box dot all cases. Then the next thing we need to do is get the image view itself. So I'm just going to call this box box be equal to get box, and we're going to pass in the string, which is our name dot role value. The next thing we need to do now that we have our image view is to say box dot image equals nil. Great. Now finally we need to reset our variables. So first we need to reset the last value to be O. Then we need to clear out the player choices so we can start again, and also the computer choices as well should be equal to this. Now that we have our reset function, we can come over here, and whenever the user wins, we want to reset the game. You could just use break. Same thing here. We want to reset, and then break. Finally, we want to reset. We might not need a break though, but break. Let's go ahead and run this and see what we have. Actually, before we test, I just realized that we didn't call this function check if one. So we need to call this function in two places. The first place is after the computer has made a decision, and after the user has made a decision. Now if we look over here, we can see that this method is triggered automatically whenever the user makes a decision. So if the user makes the last possible, if the user selects the last available spot, this method is going to be triggered and it's going to crash. So what we need to do is add a guard right here. So I'm just going to say guard, and what we need to check is that available boxes.count is greater than 0. Else we want to return. And this should be good. So let's run it again. So name, I'm just going to write macro. Start, I'm going to select this. Let's try to get a draw first. So yep, started again, and this time I'm going to win. Nice, 1. Let's see if I can allow the computer to win. Can be smart enough. He dumb already. Let's win again. I like it. Nice. So the computer won, and I'm allowed to start. And everything works as it should. Nice. So finally, we need to add the action for our close button, and we're done. So let's just go straight down. This function is already connected, and all we need to do is say dismiss. And we're going to animate this. This is going to be nil. Run it one more time. So I'm just going to write my name, macro, start, and close. Nice. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, please give a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And see you guys in the next video.